What's up everyone, welcome to the channel. This is my 2,000 point Tau army list that I took to an RTT this past weekend. I ran Cao Yun with Shadow Sun as my Warlord. So starting off with the Kroot, I use them kind of as their own Kroot hunting pack. We have the Lone Spear here. I gave him the Blast Javelin and the melee javelins, really just to allow these guys up front to gain OC whenever they want to run on an objective first turn. And honestly, I know these aren't the real Kroot Hounds, but these Kroot Hounds were the MVP of my army, and I have been running Kroot Hounds for a while, and they are honestly one of the best point-for-point units that we have when we're talking about screening and we're talking about first turn plays. The reason being, like I said, this guy, while he is within 12 inches of the Kroot Hounds, which is they can be a far way away, they gain +1 OC. So being able to throw them on the middle objective or the objective that is closest to my opponent really works out well, especially because this guy has lone operative. So you keep him exactly 12 away from these Kroot Hounds. You know, it's really, really tough for people to go and try to attack him first. And most people will not want to put any type of effort into killing the Kroot Hounds. And one of the games I'll go over today, they actually survived some shooting and scored me a lot of points. So the next guys I have here are the Krootox Rampagers. These are kind of like my melee threat. They're my counter chargers. So anybody that's trying to push me hard, I will rapid ingress these guys and, you know, just essentially run into them and charge them. And they're really, really, really good. They almost took out a Lord of Skulls. We'll get to that later. So then the next step to my army list, whenever I play with Tau, I always have a Cao Yun side and I always have a Mont'ka side, regardless of the detachment that I play. It's just the way I like to run them. So starting off with my Mont'ka side, right, as we have our Kroot hunting pack here, then we have our Mont'ka side here. We're gonna start off with Darkstrider. So I do run him alone. I don't run him with the Pathfinders because I don't really see them needing it. Getting +1 to wound isn't that great for their weapons. The ion rifles that I usually take with the Pathfinders do the job against what they need to do anyway, so +1 to wound isn't that big of a deal. But I do run him by himself, and I do put both of these units in the Devilfish. The reason being is because they all have Scout 7, so I like to be able to position my Devilfish in a way where I can attack either the middle or I can attack the objective closest to me, depending on where they need to go. And I also did forget the Kroot Lone Spear. I gave him the enhancement to redeploy. So he had the solid image projection unit, which allows me to redeploy this Devilfish with Darkstrider and the Pathfinders wherever I need them to be. So the reason this combination is super good is because it's not that expensive, and also when you push an objective, I can really screen that objective out with Darkstrider. So it really, if anybody wants to rapid ingress or they want to try to deep strike and take that objective away from me, it makes it almost impossible. And he's a really, really small model, so he can hide very, very well to where people can't see him. And yes, I do try to keep the Pathfinders alive, but sometimes they kind of have to go and do the job of, you know, what Breachers would do. And having 10 models plus that are 1 OC plus another model that's 1 OC and then a Devilfish that's 2 OC, usually I can get on that objective, take it away, or kill enough things to where I will beat them out in OC with just these units on here. And obviously everybody knows why the Devilfish is great. We don't really have to go into detail for that. But I do love this combination. It really, really helps my Kalyun strategy work. And these two in tandem are usually what plays out my turn 1, turn 2 kind of point scoring, so my big guns don't have to come out yet. So yeah, so then moving on, we have the Mont'ka side, where in addition to the Mont'ka side, we have the Piranha. Now, obviously everybody knows also why the Piranha is great. Really, really fast, good at tank shock now, has some decent weapons. I really don't like to push him out too early. I use the Kroot hounds for that. What I use the Piranha for is if I really, really need to screen out, the opponent's side of the board, which I was able to do against Custodes, and we'll get into that later. I use him to tank shock. I use him to really block things up if the Kroot hounds can't do it. So I use him to screen if the Kroot hounds get killed or they get overwatched, which most people don't do, but sometimes you'll run into people that will do that, which can mess up my strategy. So I learned that the Piranha is a very good secondary point for that. Then we have the Riptide, and everybody knows the Riptide. Yes, he has the burst cannon on him right now and the fusion blasters, but I did run him with the ion. The Riptide is just really all around just great, just good at being, holding down objectives, good at killing things, good at just kind of running around the middle of the board, just running back and forth, shooting whatever tries to push us. And the way the terrain is sometimes, he can really sit back behind that terrain and shoot anything that comes up towards us, and he doesn't have to expose himself because of his mobility. Having a 10-inch movement with this big, giant, tough guy makes holding down the middle of the board really, really easy for me. Most people do not want to get seen by the Riptide, so they will try their best to stay away, but with that range and that mobility, it's kind of impossible. So I do run him with the ion, the plasma rifle, and the missile pod drones. I do go in between the plasma rifle and the fusion blasters, but with the plasma rifle just having that little bit of extra range, usually it's a little bit better, especially when the sustained hits come in. That plasma rifle can really do some work if you roll 6s on that. Next, we have the Sunforge Crisis with the Cold Star. I think this is kind of just one of the best combinations we have in our army. We have the fusion blasters that really need that speed just to get up there and get that D6 plus 2 damage. The Cold Star, I don't put any enhancements with him because I do realize a lot of the times after they do their job, people will put everything into them just to get rid of them. And putting the extra points on the Cold Star, for example, the Kalyun usually never worked out great because not having that many shots with the fusion blasters, you don't really roll those sustained hits. And if you don't roll any sustained hits that second round, those 20 points kind of just go down the drain. So I learned it's best to kind of keep those 20 points for something else, which actually allowed me to put the enhancement on the Lone Spear. But yeah, these guys are durable, they're fast, they hit hard, they kill almost any monster or vehicle that they run into. But yeah, these guys are great. Then next I had a solo commander. He is really, I use him kind of as a distraction, meaning that he's relatively tough. You can't just put, weak weapons in him. You have to actually commit resources. I go and use him to kind of punch out characters that are trying to hide, or for example, I played Chaos Space Marines and he brought these Warp Smiths. So I used him to kind of go punch out those warp smiths that had a lone operative when they were by their vehicles. So he's really, really good for that. Really good at killing elites and lone characters or small units that can be relatively tough that I don't want to put too many points into. Going on to next is the Ghost Kill. I mean, the Ghost Kill is probably the best single unit for holding primaries we have. You know, the Ion Raker with the Fusion Blaster. The Ghost Kill is part of my Kalyun package and is really, really, really great, especially with that 36-inch range. It is very, very hard for a lot of armies to take this one down. Lone Operative, Infiltrate. I mean, he just has everything you want in a battle suit. Can fall back and shoot. Just really, really tough for most opponents to bring him down. Then next we have the Warlord Shadow Sun. Shadow Sun really helps with screening my backline, obviously giving the reroll ones to hit, and the rerolling for the command point back on a 5+ if you're within 6. That doesn't come up as much as I would like, but it does happen about once per game, which actually helps when you realize how little CP that you actually gain. So when you get that CP back and then you're able to instantly use it again, that really, really helps a lot. Obviously her Fusion Blasters, she's great at taking out, you know, putting some wounds on tanks. I wouldn't say she's great at killing them, but she's great at, you know, putting a good amount of wounds into some tanks. Really, really great into light infantry, and pretty decent into elites. And then next I have stealth suits, which are a huge part of any Tau army. The biggest thing is not actually their guiding for me. I know that they give reroll ones to hit and wound, but a lot of the times I'm either not rolling ones or, you know, I am, and, you know, they help out that little bit. Now, the biggest thing for them is the free, once per game, free rapid ingress. So what I'll do is I'll usually infiltrate one stealth suit on the left side of the board and then have another stealth suit team on the right side of the board within 9 inches of the battlefield edge. The reason being is because I will bring my broadsides and the rampagers out for free, and doing that twice per game, saving 2 CP, on top of Shadow Sun being able to, on a 5+ gain a CP once you do a stratagem, and then being able to do that stratagem for free. If you have Shadow Sun within 6 of them, you are able to roll for that free rapid ingress. So you're essentially gaining a free CP if you roll the 5+. At least that's the way I've been playing it. That's the way it seems like it's worded. And it's really, really, really strong, especially for my counter chargers, because they only really have a 7-inch movement. So being able to rapid ingress them on somebody that's pushing us for free and then charging and hitting you with those mortals is really, really great. And then the next unit we'll talk about that works in tandem with them is the broadsides. So I always take the railguns, at least in Kalyun, just because I need that range, that high AP, that high damage, so people you know, have something to be afraid of. And a lot of people are afraid of the broadsides. They can take out your biggest unit in one go, and usually they do. So usually I will rapid ingress the broadsides with one of the stealth suit teams, and they are the only ones that guide for broadsides. So the whole game they'll be guiding for broadsides. Maybe sometimes other units if I need to, but most of the time they're just going to be guiding for the broadsides. Now the broadsides, I take the railgun, I take the smart missile systems, and I take the ignore modifiers, and also the missile pod drones. Now the ignore modifiers is usually better than the one-shot seeker missile, in my opinion, because everybody's always going to want to, you know, smoke them or use smoke against them to be able to subtract that ballistic skill. And being able to just say, nope, they ignore that, it really, really hurts a lot of people's strategy. And you can kind of see it that, you know, people hate when you can really, really ignore that smoke ability, because these big guns can take a tank out in one go. So yeah, broadsides are great. They usually sit on my back line, barely moving. They're trying to get the best angle down the middle and down one side, usually towards the objective that is closest to my opponent, so they can kind of snipe out anything that tries to sit on that objective, or snipe anything that tries to come down the middle. I mean, they're really, 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 really strong, and they kill almost anything. And I do think that 2 of them is enough. I don't think that you need 3. Usually 2 is all it takes. 3 can be overkill sometimes, and I realize that you're wasting a lot of points on that 3rd broadside, and you really don't need him to kill what you need to kill. Another part of my Kalyan is the strike team. So the strike team, I think, is obviously okay, but for 75 points, 2 OC apiece, in my opinion, they're better than breachers, because the problem with breachers that I have is every time I push them up to, you know, take the middle objective or take an objective and get those, you know, to get those re-rolls when shooting at somebody, they tend not to punch up, especially in Kalyan. And then if you want to add the cadre and the devilfish with the breachers, it's just super expensive. So for this list, I realized these guys were better. They're kind of like turn 3, turn 4, you know, just sprint into the middle. Somebody's trying to score some points late game, just advance or move into the middle if you can, and just put a bunch of OC on that middle objective and deny primaries. Other than that, they screen my home objective. That's really their only jobs. I don't need them to shoot. Sometimes I'll stick out one just to guide, but other than that, they just need to screen and be prepared to sprint up to the middle and deny primaries for anybody that's trying to run up really fast. They also can be really, really great at screening my deployment zone, meaning like in the front of my deployment zone when people are trying, like World Eaters or Orcs or Custodes, armies like that are trying to just run right into you. They're really, really, really good at just saying, hey, here's 75 points of 10 guys, try to kill them, but you're gonna have to come out in the open to do it. And you know, obviously most of the time they will die, but they give me a really, really good chance of just wiping out whatever tries to jump in the middle onto them. And for 75 points, I don't think that you can really get something better. Their ability doesn't come up that much just because I don't really need to shoot with them. And I obviously don't want to just put them out for no reason, just to try to get that -1 to hit on an infantry squad, because I want to be able to use them at full strength when I need them, and they really don't need to do much else. Then lastly, my tanks. So first off, we took the Hammerhead with the Ion, and the reason for that is I think the Hammerhead is great. I think that the Railgun is great. It's depending on who you play, it's good. The railgun is the only problem with the railgun is if somebody has an invuln or they have an ability to negate damage, it just really, really hurts the railgun. And I learned with the amount of shots plus Kalyan, this thing can, you know, it can punch up. It can take out T10 vehicles. It can take out elites really well. It has the 2 seekers, so you can shoot into vehicles with that. I use the smart missile systems because they're twin linked, so that's really, really great with this Hammerhead for 145 points. I do think that the Ion is not better, but it is more useful against multiple different targets, where that railgun, I don't really need it because I have these guys. So That's why I take the Ion with the smart missile systems and the Seekers. And then last but not least, the Skyray. And in all of my games, I will say that the Skyray outperforms the Hammerhead when it comes to tank killing, just because it has the twin linked ability now on its main weapon. It gets one datasheet reroll, and if you're by Shadow Sun, you're rerolling ones, or if you're guided by Stealth Suits, you're rerolling ones. So essentially, you can get full rerolls on this Skyray by having it near Shadow Sun. So let's say you guide it, you roll a 1, 2, and a 3. Shadow Sun helps you reroll the 1, the datasheet reroll helps you reroll the 2, and then the 3 just hits. And then it being twin linked is even better, because if you're going into something, usually things are around T10, T11, maybe T9. Sometimes you roll that 1 or that 2, and and it kind of messes up your damage output. But having twin linked makes this thing amazing. The other downfall is it's D6 plus 1 damage, so you can roll bad, but I tend to keep a CP to re-roll damage for those D6 plus 1s for the Broadsides and the Skyray. And then I'll have Shadow Sun around them, so if I do spend that CP, I can potentially get it back. And that actually comes up at least once per game. I roll that 5 up and I gain that CP back, and it feels really good. So yep, that's my 2,000 point Tau army that I took to an RTT this past weekend and won first place. Next video, we'll be going over the games and how they went. Thank you for coming.